So we had to put the equipment in a shed. So we was able to build a shed, and we have limited our kind of minimize our equipment being battered by wind, weather, flood, and all kinds of things. So you got to protect that equipment so that would not be a hinder a lot of money on your budget, because you don't put that much money on your budget side for your equipment and maintenance repair. You try to limit it. So that's what we have did to minimize our risk for our equipment. Even our equipment, we check our equipment daily for any oil leaks or anything, because that problem can be in our field and can contaminate some of our fruits and vegetables. The flood.
Let's come. I have a question.
Yeah.
And I mean, interrupt.
Okay.
If I can interrupt and ask questions, I want to allow everyone to ask questions as you present on this information. And you were talking about equipment. And you said a lot of the equipment, especially the ones with technology,
yes,
following it. Explain to us how, when you house this equipment, is there a certain temperature you use when you house it to avoid risk, or did you cover it up, or during the floods, or did rain reach it any type of way, and what happened if the rain had to reach some of the equipment? And if you could be specific as to tell us, if you can name a piece of some of the equipment, so that some of our producers here on the line would have a good understanding of what you're explaining and what you're talking about. If you could be somewhat specific with that particular equipment.
Well, I want to say we purchased a tractor in 2007, and it was a kind of it was a lot of digital, computerized, and things like that. Every year, we was sending back to the shop, and they was doing the same thing over and over again. So the dealership asked us, was we parking that tractor on the outside? And we told him, yes, we did not have a cover. He said, normally in November, December, January, and February, when you are not utilizing equipment, you need to park that equipment under some kind of shed. And we was able to invest and renovate our sheds, and to build a new shed even this year to house some of our equipment, because you got a lot of your equipment now that is computerized. And if you sit down in the weather, rain, wind, cold wind, and stuff like that gets into it, it will corrode the motherboard of some of that equipment. So we had to start parking our equipment cleaning it up real good so we can get some of the debris off of it, because you might have rodent problem, and rodents eat the wires and things like that. So we cleaned it up real good. We cleaned the equipment up real good, sanitize it, and then put it under shade. And sometimes we put tarp over some of the equipment that it has computer and motherboards in there.
Okay, so you're saying, for example, like a tractor with no canopy or with no cab, but just a canopy.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so.
And that's normally in small, I'm saying a small demonstration in farms that I have visited with Mr. Baldwin at the processing plant. Most of our equipment only have canopy, and most of them do not have cabs. Okay.
So you're referring
to small, limited farmers.
Right. Yeah, I understand. Because when you talk about a lot of people, I can recall a guy I worked for that worked with me at least. He ordered a tractor and he said, "Hey, I want a canopy." So when the tractor came, it came with a canopy, but he was thinking cab and air. Mm-hmm. But he didn't say cab and air. He said canopy. So just to understand that a canopy is just to cover the top of your head, and the cab and air is going to close you in with windows and air conditioning that's going to actually keep you in the comfort of the tractor. You
Yes.
mentioned other equipment. Did you have any computerized, for example, any type of variable rate controllers or anything like that that you had to cover that was computerized that could assist you while you're in the tractor? Variable rate controllers or anything
Well,
on sprayers?
we can say our pea harvester, Mr. Woods, we have to cover that up because a lot of in the winter time, if you let a lot of that rust and corrosion get on it, it would damage the equipment. So you will have to put a lot of repair and maintenance. And I always like what you said. I grew up on a farm, and like every year we had to do a lot of work before we get to the field. And that's what hold down on your maintenance if your equipment is covered up or has a tarp over it.
Yeah, preventive. It's called preventive
Preventive
maintenance.
maintenance. Yes.
Preventive maintenance. That's correct. So that's a lot of the risk that's associated with farms is preventive maintenance. I know I grew up on a farm,
Mhm.
and some of the things my dad would do was a lot of the time if he's running late getting into the fields, he'd jump on that tractor and back up to that disc and just go on out to the field. That disc is set up all winter long. So the very first thing you hear after so many rounds in the field is you start hearing a squeaky sound.
Mhm.
And when you hear that disc starting to squeak, that means the bearing's about to go out within the disc. So one of the things that you'd have to do, which could stop you a whole day if you don't have bearings on the tractor, you would stop in that field, you jack the disc up, you take the axle out, take the bearings out. Then if you don't have new bearings on deck or on hand, you'd have to go to the nearest parts store or implement store,
Mhm.
buy those bearings to put in that particular disc, and then come back and put them in. And by that time, you've lost at least half a day working on your equipment. So certain risks associated with it is if you do preventive maintenance, when you back up to that piece of equipment that's been sitting in the field over the winter from last year, you probably want to, grease it first, grease all the alamites that are on that particular implement or equipment. So when you go to the field, you wouldn't have that particular problem.
Ms. Wood, and I know another risk factor we was having. I know you was working with us a lot. We was having to teach our farmers not to plant everything at the same time.
That's
And
correct.
and because of that, we had a flood January to 7th here on the demonstration farm, and we lost a lot of our peas and a lot of our 80% of our vegetables. But we was able to show in a demonstration that if we was not able to take the processing plant peas over to be processed, Mr. Baldwin would have lost a lot of his contracts and a lot of marketing. So we was able now to make sure that a lot of our farmers was able to plant at different dates.
Right.
And even at our demonstration farm, we started on our high, the land that was on high elevation. We started planting there before we planted on low elevation. And
Right.
that prevented a lot of risk of losing a lot of our crops here at the demonstration farm. And even with your talk, with you coming around talking to a lot of our farmers, we was able to now implement planting dates, different dates.
Right. Right. Planting dates are important because you want to be able to, especially if you plant vegetable crops, you want to be able to stagger those dates. And that's for multiple reasons. Number one, you don't want everything to be coming off at one time. And if you don't have the labor or the implement to be able to come in and harvest those particular crops, so you want to stagger the dates on that for labor purposes. Number two, you stagger the dates because, for example, like you just mentioned, in an event of a flood, you wouldn't lose everything at one time. Now, some things are aren't preventable, but the risk factor associated with it is good because you then lose everything. And another thing is for some of our growers that we need to look at is some type of crop insurance or signing up for NAP payments through your farm service agency. I worked a brief stint at the Farm Service Agency, and one of the things that happened when the flood happened here in the Delta, I was at the time I was working with the Farm Service Agency, and one of the things we had to do was go out and see who qualified for, disaster payments. It's called ECP, Emergency Crop Programs. So we wanted to look at, and it's based on a particular rate that the government assigns. You have to have so much of disaster in order to receive a particular payment. So one of the things we looked at was assisting a lot of the growers with what was needed, producers with what was needed. And some of the producers that planted in low level areas, they'd get that assistance, but they had to have had crop insurance also, whether it's whole farm revenue or whether it's some type of crop insurance with others. These are your conventional row crop farmers I'm referring to, with getting that full coverage insurance, that whole farm revenue. Well, that not the whole farm, but the other types of insurance that could help. But that is important also to avoid risk. And when we think about risk, we want to think about what could I do in an event that something happens that helps me to be able to continue to farm or continue to function or continue to help my farm to move forward. So let me ask you this, John, during the pandemic, and I know right now things are slowly opening up. Well, things are opening up now. So I know back when you all planted the crops that you all would let people come in and harvest the crops on different types of basis, whether it was on the half or whether it was on the third, or whether, they picked up, however they harvested the crop. So what measures are you all looking at now to avoid the risk or to keep the risk moving forward that's going on now with some that you all plan to do?
I'm glad you did ask that question, Mr. Wood. That was my next thing was human labor and things like that. And it really has not affected us because we already had GAP certification, and GAP certification had some of those risk factors in it. It prevented some of those risk factors already. Washing your hands, make social. Well, we know we had social distancing. You can be social distant in the field because people don't want you to be around their row and things like that. So all of these great things are, and that's what I have right here. I was going to talk about the GAP certification, and this is our book, and it was very helpful when moving on. A lot of things we had to make sure that people wear masks, and now since the governor has lifted those mask restrictions on the outside, it's pretty good. I mean, everything is pretty good. We still see a lot of people that are coming out and things like that. So when you was GAP certified, we always had these procedures already in place.
Right. Yeah, I knew some of the GAP certifications were that, some of the clients can come out because with earrings or jewelry or anything like that, because you want to run the risk of spreading or smoking cigarettes because you didn't want to spread tobacco mosaic diseases. Some of the other factors that we looked at that were practices that were already in place, which assisted a lot of our growers. But one of the things that we couldn't stop was the spreading. So like you say, if you socially distance within the field, or if you stay with the crew that rode with you to the field, those are ways that you can prevent the spread. However, you're on the outside. I mean, I don't know how it spreads on how it would spread on the outside, and I'm not a CDC expert, but I'm pretty sure you're probably, as long as you're not next to people that you didn't come within the field, and they are obeying those GAP certifications. I don't foresee it being a problem. So are you all taking measures? I guess since the flood happened, you all are pretty much going to be late on harvesting a lot of these.
No, we're harvesting sweet corn as we speak. And,
okay.
and a lot of things like, you said, we make sure the buckets are clean and sanitized every day. We'll make sure people are bringing in clean harvesting equipment into the field and things like that. Make sure people are wearing gloves, checking their temperature, and we'll make sure they have masks if they don't, when they come in the building.
Now, Mr. John, but isn't that under GAP certification? That's not COVID restrictions, that's GAP certification requirements. Is that right?
Yeah, that's why I said the GAP certification and COVID was kind of like same thing. They're kind of like similar, the protocols and things like that. So only thing that was different in the COVID that you had to wear a mask, but all the other things was already in place. And plus, you're on the outside, and people are already 6 feet apart and things like that.
Well, one question I have for you, implementation of these crop insurance, what things have Alcorn looked at if you have farmers that cannot afford crop insurance? We know those types of things are there for farmers, but what type of planning or training you all are offering to farmers to mitigate risk when the affordability is not there for crop insurance?
Well, we're pushing them into that office, like Mr. Woods was saying, FSA with NAP insurance. We're trying to tell them to go, trying to let our clientele know when those dates for sign up and things like that, so they can be able to go into those FSA offices and sign up for NAP insurance and NAP coverages and things like that. And that's one thing, even coming out of this farm bill, out of this, what they call it, 1006 or 1005, whatever, it's more technical assistance to help small disadvantaged farmers take advantage of these programs that are out here, what USDA has for them. So that's one thing. And me and Mr. Woods, we used to work with the 2501 program, and that's what's trying to push these farmers and landowners into these offices and take advantage of these programs.
So you're speaking more so of not necessarily having crop insurance, but when you're talking about strictly disaster relief opportunity. Is that what you're speaking of?
No,
it's
the
NAP
NAP is non-agriculture insured program.
Yes, but now the disaster programs, you don't have to be insured, but you could go in and get those payments, right. Is that what you're referring to as well? That
he referred to it as the sign up.
Through the sign up. Yeah, I'm sorry, I said payment. Yeah. But that you have disaster programs within Farm Service Agency that but a lot of times the farmers do not know those exist as well, that you could go in and apply for that type of relief, even though you do not have insurance for certain things. So definitely.
If I'm not mistaken, Ms. Bell, now one thing, you need to have a farm number.
Yes.
To start applying with that. And that's what we need to tell our local producers. And that's a risk thing right there. We need to be signed up with FSA, sign up our land, just like I always call when you go in the Farm Service Agency, signing up is just like when you sign up for being a new baby. They give you a social security number, and that farm identification number is very important so that you can take advantage of these different programs that are out here.
Yes, sir. One thing I wanted to move to, because I know we have several people that wanted to hear more about the processing facility and how you all mitigate risks on that side. I'm always interested in how do organizations and companies mitigate the risk when you have water shortage or water outage, but you still have to run your processing facility. So can you share with us what type of things have been put in place if you all have no water or that water has been compromised? But you have to run that particular day to stay on schedule for as your contract.
Okay, and that's one thing we're moving to, something that will minimize our water risk and things like that is pea production. You don't need too much water you don't need no water to run pea production, and that's what we're doing a lot, trying to find something that is real, what you call it, have a limited risk factor in it, and that's peas. Only thing you have to do is pick them, bring them into the processing facility, shell them, and bag them and weigh them out and put them in the cooler. So we are trying to find some ways not to use that much water, because one thing, Ms. Bell, for limited resources, farmers and things like that, that water bill is kind of very high.
Mm-hmm. So now, but don't you all process other vegetables? Could you share that with us? What other vegetables are processed at the facility?
Yeah, we process. That's why I said 90% of all vegetables that we process at the processing facility in Marks, Mississippi is peas. Okay. Other 10%, you might have a little few greens, squash and things like that. Squash do not need no water and things like that. So the most that you might need water for at the processing facility is washing greens.
Washing the greens. Okay.
Yes.
All right. But in that case, do you all have tanks, things that are put, there on the site in case you don't have it coming from the municipal water source? Is anything been put in place for that whenever you need water and so forth? Because you still on the GAP certification, you still have to wash your hands when you go to the restroom. It's different things where you are utilizing water. But my question was, if water's turned off for whatever reason, or that water have been compromised within your municipal system, and they ask you not to use it for a period of time, have you all put anything in place or have tanks or things there that are holding water that could assist you?
Well, I know, and that's a good thing right there. You're talking about if you was on one limited water source, even like the demonstration farm, we're on three water sources. We get water from the county, from the city of Mount Bayou, and from our well. Oh, and that's a good thing for Mr. Baldwin that he is getting water from the city and from the county. So we have not witnessed that problem right now, but that is something I'm glad you have brought that in, Ms. Bell, about that. But I really just be shut down when those and we are not on a big wide, what you call it, on a big production level and things like that. We're on a small area scale production. And so right now, that is something good to look into when that time comes. And so I would address that problem too.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Mr. Vance.
Hi, I just thought maybe I would mention something, Felicia, that we do at our place, because we do have the same kind of problem that you're talking about, where we lose power and or just water is cut off for one reason or another. Mm-hmm. And we do two things. One is we have a 3,000 gallon tank, and our well pumps to that tank, and then it flows by there's a booster pump that comes out of that tank that goes all over for our processing. And so number one, there's always water in that tank. So if the power goes out, we've got 3,000 gallons there, even if the well won't pump anymore because there's no power. And then the other thing is that tank we put up on a hill. And so even when that booster pump isn't going, we've got gravity that will push it so we can at least fill our dunk tanks or the places where we do our post-harvest handling. And so the height of that tank is another important part of our system. And then the last thing that we do is our dunk tanks. At night it gets a lot cooler, and so we oftentimes before a harvest, the next day we'll fill those dunk tanks the night before, and the water gets cooler, so we don't have to put ice or anything in them the next morning for to cool our crop. And that saved us a couple of times where we got out there to do the harvest the next day, and for one reason or another didn't have water. Well, we still had 2 tanks full and waiting for us, and we could push a lot through that. So that was a couple of things that we've done to help us.
I thank you so much, because yes, that was the type of question I was asking, because we have so many various farm levels. So you have farms that have processing facilities on their land, and then of course, working with a university, that's a larger scale. So thank you so much for adding that, because we want to make sure that farmers are understanding what they could utilize as mitigating risk when we have things that we cannot control. And of course, that is the water, our gas, electricity, and some of us in various states this year have had to go through that with weather and sometimes disasters and so forth. So thank you so much for adding that. Where are you located, Mr. Vince?
We're in California, actually.
Got you.
Oh.
Okay.
And Mr. Trotter, let me ask you one question. How long would that tank, the reserve tank, last for production?
So we're pretty small. We're on 2 acres.
Okay.
And so our processing goes pretty fast. So those 3,000 gallons we can push probably 3 harvest days through that tank. It'll hold us for a while. We dunk in 2 about 400-gallon tanks, and then let them drip, and we can cycle several crops through those tanks before we have to drain them and refill. So you can see 3,000 gallons will hold us for a while through those kind of rotations. Plus, if we filled the tank the night before, we already got 800 gallons just ready to go.
And
So let me ask.
Oh, go ahead, Rod.
Does that water have to be potable water?
Oh yeah. I mean, this is for our post-harvest.
Okay.
So it's tested and potable for sure. Our irrigation water is separate. That's out of a pond. We don't use that for our post-harvest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. That was my question as well, just to give clarity, to make sure our farmers understand what has to happen when you're harvesting and is going out to the public. So thank you so much for sharing that. And thanks, Rod, for asking that, because yeah, we need to make sure we know the difference and so forth. Mr. John, one question I have for you, I know most of your farmers are row croppers. Is it anything in place that if you have your smaller farmers that may want to do organic or traditional methods, do you all have systems in place to bring those farmers in to get processed?
No, right now. But if they consider themselves, Mr. Baldwin will put them a special schedule or something like to that effect. If they're saying that that these peas are not these are not organic peas and things like that, he will stop it and clean up and things like that and change around and process the Rpcs by themselves
Yes, sir.
and then
Good.
sell it to a
And then-
different market.
And I'm assuming you would have to make documentation of that to show, I know for GAP certification, and then also just for your records to show when that equipment is being cleaned and
Yes.
for what purpose.
Yes, he would
Okay.
do that.
Good.
Yeah,
good.
he documented everything.
Yes,
Versus
sir.
a documentation man.
Other thing is, it's not any high tunnels on the farm, is it? You all strictly do row cropping. You don't do high tunnel.
I wanted to show y'all around the farm with my phone, but when I went out there, is what you call that, Wi-Fi and things like that, was not picking up. But yes, we have two high tunnels. USDA has a high tunnel that they do blueberries research in it, and we do a high tunnel that we do different demonstrations, even for our field day. And for small tours that we show a lot of the kids and farmers how to manage a high tunnel management.
Okay, that's wonderful. I didn't realize you all had high tunnels.
Yes.
And then how are we working with the high tunnels for its pests? I know one of our speakers, they have wildflowers that they plant on the outside of the high tunnels to help mitigate that pest risk and pest infiltration into the high tunnels. Have you all thought of anything like that or have that in place to help with mitigating pest damage inside your high tunnel?
Yes, and Raquel can tell you we have an entomologist on our site that he loves insects, and he has all kinds of traps, plants, and things around our high tunnel. And I wish I could show y'all, but I'll tell you when I go outside, it's fade away. But yes, we have Dr. Tahir Rashid, and that's what he loves insects. He even like keeping the Raquel, we have wasps up here and yellow jackets. He don't want us to kill those.
No, those are beneficial, you know.
Yes.
So, yes.
I didn't know.
So yeah, working with Dr. Rashid, what he would do was for different types of pests, he would put out pheromone traps to try to capture some of the pesky insects. Some of the beneficial ones he wouldn't too much worry about, but a lot of the times when you have your insect pest that's going to do damage to the crops, you want to put a trap in there, whether it's a yellow sticky trap or pheromone traps to attract them, or if you put a trap crop inside of that particular greenhouse, that would allow those pests to come in and capture that trap crop versus your cash crop that you're trying to produce. So
can you explain that further for people that be looking at this as a later date? What is a trap crop? What could be utilized as a trap crop? So
a trap crop would be a crop that you would plant that's going to attract the insects, and it's what it is. It's a trap. Well, it's not necessarily a trap, but it's a deterrence from them. They're going to attack the crops that's there. That's going to be succulent. That's going to be young. That's going to be that they're going to be attracted to. Versus this it's going to be planted first that they're going to be attacking first. And while they're attacking that crop, you want to have another crop, which is your cash crop that you plan to make money off of, that the insects won't tend to bother at a young stage because they're busy attacking the crop that you've planted first. And it's normally a crop that's going to be attracted to them. That's normally, I want to say, out of season. Or maybe not so much as in season, but it's going to be the crop that's you're going to attract them to.
And usually
it's just like sunflowers are very good traps and things like that. Right. And it's kind of like Rock said, Ms. Wood said, it's kind of like the story about the young bull. And the young bull, he said, "Daddy, let's go down there and mess with all the cows and things like that." He said, "Son, let's walk and we can get them all." And so that's what, like the insects, they like to go rush out there and get the same first thing is the traps and things like that. And then they get trapped in there and everything like that. So, and they will not mess with the cash crop.
Now share with us, where are they usually planted though? So
Around the
people-
barriers, around the borders.
Yeah.
Around the borders.
So you would be getting to that first when Mr. Woods said they would be planted first. That's correct for us planting, but then they also, you're gonna get to them first. And you have to walk through that trap crop to get to your actual cash crop.
Right.
Other question about your high tunnel, do you, with this flooding, was your high tunnels built up? I know some farmers
Yes.
build up their high, so did you all have damage in there as well?
Yeah, when
during
you
the
know,
flooding?
like I like to this bit. It's kind of like when people houses was when first we built their houses. When we first kept high tunnels, people that sprayed the high tunnel and placed the high tunnels there. But when people over the years they start building a pad so they can especially here in the Mississippi Delta where it's flat, so the water would not set up in that high tunnel. So a lot of our high tunnels are sitting up in a high elevation.
Great. And see, again, we just want to make sure we're sharing with our audience that it's so many ways that you can mitigate risk. And it sometimes really happens when you get started with your farming. So when you're putting that high tunnel out, building up your path for your high tunnel, keep from that flooding occurring. And then when you see erosion, you got to start working on it then.
Yeah,
As soon
right.
as you start seeing eroded, bank it back up. You got to use whatever means necessary to bank that pad back up under that high tunnel so you don't have that water coming through and so forth. And then also we talked about the water going into the high tunnel. Mr. Trotter helped us with that, understanding the difference between the potable water, what has to be used and regulated for post-harvest food that's going into the public versus utilizing, I believe he said pond water for irrigation. So making sure our audience understand that it could be a difference and making sure that these things are documented for one, for your records and for any government permits that you have, but then also you're mitigating risk where you're not adding disease through water, especially if you have water issues, which most people have had in Mississippi in this last year and a half. We're having to deal with water having to be shut off to fix water lines, and that can, add bacteria within the line when they turn it back on. So you can have issues, and we want to make sure we're doing the right things to make sure that people are getting quality food, and we're not spreading bacteria and spreading things like that through our vegetables and so forth. So I appreciate that so much. I again didn't realize you all had high tunnels, and you said strictly for blueberries right now. Fruit production is being done in the high tunnel. Is that correct?
Yeah, a lot of research on blueberry.
I got you. I understand.
Another thing I wanted to make mention of on these high tunnels is the direction that you place your high tunnel also. A lot of people, in certain areas, you can, if you got a lot of wind and rain that's going to be coming out of the north, you don't want to have your high tunnel turn east and west. I mean, because it would just blow the sides off with ease. But if they're facing north and the wind is coming out of the north, that means you got that good facing on your high tunnel that the wind will have to tackle first before it blows the cover off the top.
Yeah.
So
Thank you, Rob.
direction is another
Important thing. Yes. And that's definitely, we have that issue in the South. Couple of more things that I wanted to ask. We mentioned it briefly on our part one, but the vehicles being used to transport from the farm to the processing facility, what type of things are you all utilizing? I guess cleaning. Also, I'm assuming you always making notation of when those crops are being brought from the field to the processing facility, could you share your way of utilizing vehicles and dedicated vehicles for crop production?
Yes, well, the processing plant is about an hour away from us. And we make sure that our vehicles are clean at all times when we're carrying vegetables over to the processing facility. Percy give us some RPCs to transport our vegetables over to the processing plant. When we take something over there, he will give us RPCs to bring back so we can take it from the field, from our containers that we have placed in the field, and we put them into RPCs and deliver them to the processing facility. But first thing we have a cooler here at the demonstration farm that we take the field heat out of our vegetables. And we mostly transport our vegetables because we do not have a refrigerated truck. We are in the process of getting that refrigerated truck, but we take our vegetables in the cool part of the day. That's in the morning time before 9 o'clock and at the evening time after 6.
Okay.
Transport our vegetables to the processing part.
Two things need more clarity. What are RPCs?
Recyclable plastic containers.
Okay, great, thank you. And then how are you cooling? When you say you're taking the field heat out, what are you all utilizing to do that?
We're bringing them out the field, and we have a cooler. I wish I could walk around and tell you. We got a cooler here on the farm. It's about, I say about 6 by 6.
Okay, so it's a walk-in cooler. So
Walk-in
you're
cooler,
taking
walk-in
the
cooler.
RPCs
Yes.
and just stacking them in this walk-in cooler.
Cooler,
Is that
yes.
correct? Okay.
Yes.
Now I understand. Yes, sir. Okay.
Taking the field heat out of, the field heat out of the vegetables,
Mhm.
and then be able to ship them the next morning or that evening.
Yes,
And
sir.
Yeah.
And the reason why I wanted clarity, because some of our farmers I've seen use ice. Like they have ice machines. They may not have a walk-in cooler, but they dump ice in the RPC. So I wanted to make sure that the farmers understood.
I think we're a little bit advanced.
Yes, sir. I understand. I got you. Now, my other question is, we briefly talked about it, but I want to dive a little bit deeper. What risk management procedures were put in place for volunteers and employees from crop contamination? And not necessarily related to COVID, but just what did you all have in place? And like I said, we briefly talked on it, but do you all, I think I want to dive in. Do you have things in place that's put up on a wall, like you have laminated something and you have it up where volunteers can see it, employees can see it on the new regulations, even for COVID? And if you can share what regulations you had in place prior to COVID for volunteers and employees.
Okay, golly. And Ms. Bell, can I share the screen? Who got it?
Oh, yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Let me show you your board.
Let me make sure you have.
Let me show you something. So, and before, if I can talk before, is ready?
Yes, sir.
Before someone goes to the field, the first thing they have to report to the office. After reporting to the office, the person at the receptionist desk will check them out, make sure that there are no jewelry They're wearing gloves and things like that. Do they have gloves? Do they have the right container before, or we will give them a container to pick their vegetables and let me see. And then they have to read this sign right here. Do you see this sign?
No, sir, we're not able to see it.
Okay.
Did you click on share screen?
Yes, click on share screen.
Okay.
That's all. Okay, but it's a sign that says stop. You'll see that sign. You stop and you will read on the board. No jewelry, no tobacco chewing, no cigarette smoking, all the different things on there. But before they are screened 2 times. They're screened at the desk when they sign in. They have to come into the building, sign in, and make sure we look at them and make sure that they are all right to go to the field. And then they have another sign they have to stop before they go into the fence and read that sign, and all of our rules and regulations are on that billboard.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for sharing that. Now, question to you. Do you think these are good policies for small farmers as well? Like just what you said?
Yes, you want to check and see what people are coming into your field and things like that. You ought not just allow them. So that's where you ought to have different checkpoints for people when they're trying to come into your facility. It's just like I would say just like in the school, they don't let you just walk up in the school. You have to stop at the secretary desk. Stop at the office, sign in, and they make sure and everything like that, who you want to see and things like that. And that's the same thing. And then the third, we always have a third checkpoint. We have some of our employees that ride around periodically and check on the people that are harvesting and things like that, and making sure that they're using the right containers, that they have signed in, do they have a slip, permission to come out in the field, and or do they have any jury or anything on, are they harvesting our vegetables the right way? So we kind of have 3 checkpoints.
Yes, sir. Wow. See, that's
great
to know. And then, like you say, it's good for small farmers to have that as well. Not 3, but they need to understand that you just don't let anyone on the property, even this was pre-COVID, to make sure that you are staying in control of who is coming on your land. You have to know and document if that person had the sniffles. You may have to ask them not to proceed and so forth. So these are things that small farmers can do. Now, back on the field, do you have hand washing stations and those types of things in the field, or just the restrooms in the building where they could go and utilize that? And also, is it trash receptacles for water bottles and so forth? How do you mitigate trash and mitigate contamination from them eating or drinking in the field? Is that even allowed?
No, most of our volunteers and most of our the people that are going to the field, and I'm glad you did. I got to go back a little bit. They are sometimes driven out in the field, escorted out there into the field with our vehicles, so we would know, and that's another rule, so we can know what they are picking and everything like that. Minimize the risk of stealing, putting in their trunks and things like that. So we kind of take them out there to the field, place them where the spot they need to be at, and things like that. They need to use the restroom, even in gap certification. I think you could be less than a half a mile or something like that, but we can bring them back up to our facilities. We have a facility here on in the office and in our shop area that they can use the restroom, or they can have a drink of water or something.
Great to know. So I'm assuming no eating, no drinking.
No, that's on the sign. That's on the sign too.
Okay. Okay.
I wish I could pull that sign. That's on the sign too.
Okay,
No
well,
eating, no
maybe,
drinking.
you know, hopefully we could come and visit because I know it's
Oh, yes.
farmers that will want to see
Yes.
how things are done, what signs are put in place, what is needed. Also, do you all have a
Well, let me,
liability
what you
sheet?
just said, Ms. Bell,
Mhm.
even GAP certification, Mississippi audit, GAP certificate, use our sign in their workshops when they're talking about. There was a sign made up that has everything on there. A big sign has everything on there. No smoking, no drinking, no eating in the field, no jewelry, and everything like that. They used our sign, the
Wow.
one we made here at the demonstration.
That's amazing because that's just helping farmers and helping our ag professionals to share that knowledge with other farmers around the state. That is wonderful. I know we're coming to a close, few more minutes. One of the things is liability. Do you have these individuals signing a waiver, a liability waiver when they come in? I know we stress that a lot for our small farmers to have those types of things in place when they have events. Do you all have that in place as well to help mitigate risk? It don't keep you from getting, you know, litigation brought against you. It doesn't 100%, but it assists you in a help if you have some type of waiver that could be signed for small farmers. But as a university, do you all have that as well?
Yes, that is on the sign-in sheet when they're signing.
Great. Okay.
All those restriction and policies and everything right there on the sign-in sheet.
Great. Wow.
Yeah.
That's good because we tend to think that the universities and the larger entities don't do what we're asking the small farmers to do, but you all just do it at a larger scale.
Yes.
We're doing the same thing. We have to think of things to mitigate risk. We have to create a plan. That's the purpose of this particular project, is to get our farmers start learning about risk. So learn about risk and then creating a risk management plan. That's really what we want you to do out of this program, and understand that it's needed. It's for yourself, it's for family members, volunteers, and employees. Creating that risk management plan, having it laminated or placed in a book where it's available to all that works on your land, so they can know what needs to be done when this occurs, whatever that is. And so making sure we do that. I want to open it up to our audience today for questions. If you want to ask a question, you could do that at this time in the chat, or you could come off mic and open up your mic and be able to ask questions as well. Do we have any questions? Ms. John, we're able to see your screen now. Did you want
Okay,
to share?
that's what I'm now I can show you the board.
Oh, great, great.
That's it right there.
All right, we still seeing your home screen.
You don't see it?
Yes, yes, sir. We can see it now.
Okay, that's
Okay,
the board when they're coming into the field.
okay. Wow, that's amazing. And you're saying for as the state of Mississippi now is replicating that and wanting people to understand they need this much on a sign to mitigate as much risk as possible for GAP certification and just to mitigate any risk.
Yes.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm assuming, is it in it, no cell phones? Is that on there?
Let me.
I
I
know
might have
it's
to add
on
that.
print. Or is that allowed? Do you allow people in the field with cell phones?
Well, I said yes. I think at a minimum they kind of keep them in the truck and things like that, so they won't lose them. A lot of people have lost their cell phone.
Oh, okay. Have lost the cell phones in the field?
In the field, and so
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they really leave their phones in the car or in our truck.
Okay, could you share before we get off and waiting on others if they want to ask a question? Could you share why it's not needed for smoking? Like, why is that? Why do all of us as ag professionals and farmers do not want people smoking around the vegetables?
But you got some plants like tomato, and they will have that tomato mosaic virus and things like that, tobacco mosaic virus. A lot of that contamination was spread, and it was spread into our foods. You can see what GAP certification all came about when we had all this recall in foods. We had a lot of recalls over a period of time, and now to mitigate or to stop a lot of these risks and a lot of these lawsuits and a lot of these recalls, they are cutting out a lot of these things like that can carry contamination, even like jewelry, even smoking, even pet. You can take, you see no pets that are into the field. So there's a lot of things that can get on our vegetables and be taken into our food service lines.
Okay. Now we have, and I'm gonna drop it in the chat. And Asa, you may be able to help me if you could go to MDAC, Mississippi Department of Agriculture. The question was asking if we could share GAP certification classes. Our Kevin Riggin is the gentleman that's the GAP certifier for the state of Mississippi. So if you're visiting us today from another state, you would have to go to that particular, your state agriculture department and look for that and research, call or look on their website to see who is your GAP certifier, or if it's a third party, then your Department of Agriculture can share those names and contact with you. But for us, it's Kevin Riggin.
Yes.
With the Mississippi Department of Agriculture and Commerce. And so if you're in the state of Mississippi, that would be the person that you could contact to see if he offer classes, and or if he do not, he definitely is the person that can help you understand GAP certification. Our next question, Mr. John, after harvesting in the field, do you repack to the RPCs and then put them in the cooler?
Yes, we take them out of the containers that come out of the field. We repack them into our RPCs, clean RPCs, and put them and place them inside the coolers. Even when they're taken over to the processing plant, Mr. Baldwin, we bag the truck up, he repacks them into another clean RPCs and put them into his coolers.
Wow. Okay. So you have provisions where you're making sure no contamination.
No contamination.
No commingling or anything.
Yes.
Okay. Next question this person have, did I understand correctly that you take workers from the field back to the shop to use the restroom, or to the building to use the restroom?
Yes. Yes, we do. Because we do not have portable johns at our facility. Our facility is not that big that requires porta johns around the perimeters and things like that. So they will come back to our facility at the office building or at the shed where it's clean and sanitized.
Gotcha. And I think you mentioned within GAP certification is a
1 mile rule.
Yeah, I was going to add some type of regulation of how far that restroom can be from the field. So
Yes.
It is some type of rule. So please keep that in mind when you're becoming GAP certified. But also, again, if you are a small farmer and do not want to be GAP certified, if you do not want to be organic certified, these are things that you still need to put in place. Have to, because it's so many risks on a farm. It's so many risks. And again, this project is for you to understand, walking your land, looking at what risks that are out there, because again, We're talking about a processing facility and we're talking about a demonstration farm on all the risks that they have. That's 2 facilities. And so just think about how many risks you possibly would have on your farm, but you would only know them. You know where the potholes are. You know where a post fell down in. You know where a fence is down that you may need to fix. These are risks. If someone comes on your land, a hunter may get on your land accidentally and then get caught up in that barbed wire that's on the ground. Okay, if they get injured, that possibly could be a litigation, even though technically they're trespassing, but that is to be, warranted by the courts. We're not attorneys, so we want to make sure that we're helping you understand that these things can be on your land and they can, be risks for you in the future. So it's walking your land, driving your land. If you have large acreage and you have to drive, okay, if you have agritourism and you have events on your land, when you drive it, do you have potholes in your road that you may have to fill so you're not tearing someone's car up or damaging that car when they're coming to an event? Then
Yes, ma'am.
once they get on your field, is it little divots in your land that possibly someone could hurt their ankle or, something with their foot, wrench their foot? So you just, all of these types of things, most of us know where these things are on our farm, but when you have a complete stranger, a visitor to your land, they don't know. So again, we want to make sure we're just stressing to small farmers, walk your land, drive your land, jot down what you see, and then come back home and then create a solution for that. And it needs to be a plan B, C, D. I'm always a firm believer, don't put all your eggs in one basket. And so don't, you see a risk and say, okay, we can solve it this way. Okay, we know as farmers, that don't always work. You're planning something, but that plan may need a plan. And so we want to make sure that our farmers understand that. So, Mr. John, we appreciate your time today. Mr. Rock, thank you for asking the questions and being a part of this presentation today to make sure we're staying on track with the risk management. This is, a big project for you, and you're always pushing risk management. That is a big deal, and we want to make sure our farmers are understanding that it's just as important as the production side of our farm. Last closing words. I want to go to Mr. John, and then you, Rock, to close us out.
Oh man, I'm glad to be with my great friends, Mr. Woods and Miss Felicia. You all have been very, very, very good talking about great things across the state of Mississippi. I wish you the very best luck, Mr. Woods. You back in the saddle where you want to be at, NCAT. Miss Felicia, you're always #1 here in Mississippi. So y'all, thank y'all for having the demonstration farm here today. And we're looking forward for great meetings in the near future.
Great. Mr. Woods?
Yeah, I just wanted to just express and thanks everybody for getting this call together and in my absence and actually putting on a actual great workshop and we're able to sit down and talk and get our producers out to understand some of the things about risk and how it can affect them in major ways on the farm. And I just like to encourage more and to let them know that we have an in-person one on July 16th in Holmes County. So in-person workshop is going to be on a farm, an actual farm, and we're putting all the risks associated with keeping people safe once we have that particular workshop. So we'd like to invite you all out to that. And I'm pretty sure it's going to be advertised. And we'll make sure that those of you that are here, if you're not in California or somewhere like that, but we'll try to, we'll see, can we make it virtual also to be able to see some tours that we're going to have on that also. If not, we'll record it and you can always go back and watch it later. So
Yes.
We're still in talks with it now, but thank you. And, thanks everyone for chiming in on this call.
Thank you so much. Everyone
Right.
have a great evening. We appreciate you being here. As always, Aisha, thank you for helping us. That's another Gulf States Regional Office member, and we thank you so much for always being here and helping us out. So please join us for July 16th at Mr. James Birch Farm. And however you were able to get this particular information for this event, please go back there. That is already out, that invitation. So you do have to register. So please go back to where you are definitely on our website under our events tab, as well as our Facebook page. You will be able to find that information. So thanks everyone for joining us today, and we will see you on the next workshop. Goodbye.
Great shout out to Asia. All right.